just explain the schedule for tonight, if you like. A couple of announcements to make. First of all, if anyone's looking for toilet facilities, they're through there. If there's any fire problems, the escape's there, it's quite obvious. Right, my name's Rob Stewart. I'm the resident of Steps. Not one of the people that were consulted by the Scottish Government. But nonetheless, we haven't been given, the community hasn't been given a very long time to actually respond to this issue that we've been faced with. So basically the agenda, if you like, is I have a PowerPoint presentation which will go through the general issues involved in this, the 4 sites in Steps which are affected, and 3 on the borders of Steps which are affected as well. We'll go through that and basically explain what the problems are, what we can do about it, and how we're arranging to do that, and then what we'll do after the meeting once we get objection forms, comments back from people. At the very, very end of the presentation, we will take questions then, if you don't mind, because this presentation, or tonight's proceedings, is being videoed, and if there's everybody chips in halfway through the meeting and starts talking at the same time, it'll spoil the whole effect. So if you can go along with that, please, and wait until we come to questions right at the end. Okay. A few words of introduction. Thanks for coming tonight. I thought the rain might put people off. It was very busy last night at this similar meeting. We'll just follow basically the same procedure that we followed last night. So first of all, could I introduce and ask Councillor Brian Wallace to say a few words on North Lanarkshire Council's perspective of this issue. Thanks.
Is it because I come down here that you put the lights off? I think what I'm just going to try and do, if you can hear me, one is particularly to thank the Community Council for making a really gigantic effort to bring this to the Deeply Steps, Millerson and Down, particularly. I think I'm going to try and update you from the point that North Lanarkshire Council have got a duty to provide a North Lanarkshire local plan that will stand the test of time, and when developers apply they submit applications for example, housing or community facilities, it's relevant to the local plan, and we don't end up, strangely enough, with too much housing in the wrong place. The Council approved a local plan in 2008. In 2009 they opened it up for consultations. They decided that what they would do is they would have 2 large growth areas. That was one in Abram Hill and one in Gartcosh, and it probably consisted of somewhere in the region of about 3,000 to 3,500 houses. The reason they gave for doing that was so that local communities weren't consistently being hit with applications for 10, 20, 50 houses. The second reason they gave for it was the fact that if developers who seemed fairly happy with it at that time, they could get together, they could provide the infrastructure such as community facilities, education facilities and other such like. That was very briefly the reasons for doing it. It did meet with substantial opposition, I've got to say, and because there was still a number of unresolved objections to the plan, they had to submit it to the Scottish Government Planning Department. It's called the Local Plan Examination. Whilst they were doing that, the Scottish reporters decided they would need to spend some time, so they had 2 or 3 sessions, I believe, to discuss the finer points of the local plan. One of the outcomes was that the housing, let me get this right, it's Houses for Scotland, it's the body that represents Homes for Scotland, the body that represents house builders in Scotland, argued and said that they hadn't enough places for housing. The council disagreed with them and said their position was 2 growth areas and they would not enter into discussion after that. The Scottish Reporter said that it was minded to allocate further sites for private house building. That's what he did. So what he's done is he's called in about 39 sites between wards 1 and 5. It's not just our ward that is subject to that. There is a number of North Lanarkshire wards involved in that. But I presume what we're really here tonight about is the impact or the possible impact of 1, 2, 3 of these submissions, or if you like, they're not applications as such, but what they are is intended applications if the Scottish Reporter gives or tells the council to put them into the local plan. Once they're in the local plan, the council will find it almost impossible to refuse an application for that particular site. They still will have to submit an application, by the way. They'll still have to submit it to the council. But the way it works is, if the council at that point refused it, it could go back to the same reporter. So I think now is the time to make the point that basically we don't want these houses. And I think it's imperative, obviously, that everybody plays a part in that. I've probably missed some things out. I don't want to hog it, and I'll give you back to Rob.
Thanks, Councillor Wallace. Right, we'll just quickly move on. As Councillor Wallace said, the reason we're doing this, we've been given very short notice by the Scottish Government on this issue, and only some of the people in steps, a limited number of people in steps, have been consulted. In other words, they've received letters direct from the reporters in Falkirk. Now we understand that those letters have gone out to consultees who are on a list of people who are 20 metres from any of these sites. So if you're 21 metres away from the site, you wouldn't have been consulted. So that's why we have launched this campaign, if you like, to try and get the message across to people in steps that do have an opinion, because it's our village and we don't want this to happen. It's not just a few people, it's the whole village that's affected by these people, by these proposals. Community Council itself is in recess until September. So this is why we are in a bit cramped conditions tonight, because the Community Council are not around until September actually to organise bigger halls, that kind of thing. But the Scouts have very kindly given us use of the hall tonight for nothing, and I'll be saying a bit about that later on. They're actually